Hi from Canada. This plugin is not bad at all, and I even bought it for myself considering a lot of features. But I don't understand, am I the only one who noticed this crazy mistake? This, the most popular equalizer of the last year, was on the market for 1 year. I don't understand what's going on with the audio engineering world. Now I will explain this crazy mistake, but if you want to know real audio engineering, come to my course. I even give you 1 free trial class, and this channel is just light entertaining addition to one of the most powerful audio production courses. It's 9 months online. The cool thing is you can get 1 free trial class. You will be connected to one of classes with my current students who are taking this course right now, so you can see exactly how we study. And we have monthly payments. Hundreds of students graduated from this course over the last 9 years, and a lot of them believe it's a game changer for them. As a bonus, we have unique homework checking sessions when I don't just listen to like others. I open your projects in real time in front of you, and I compare it to the best sounding mixes of all time. I show your mistakes, I change your settings, I explain how to make decisions. The information about me, my course, and 260 reviews you can find in the first pinned comment or in the description. But instead of reading, I offer you a much better way. Get a free trial class because nobody knows better than you what works for you. And ask for the course details in email. How to contact me to get a free trial class. The information is in the first pinned comment or in the description or on the screen. Here's the plan how I'm gonna explain this crazy mistake in the curse of this equalizer. I'm gonna explain the concept of the constant equalizer. It's probably something what you didn't know, and it will be actually extra valuable stuff for you from this video. And then we're gonna check this crazy mistake. So how this equalizer became the most popular of the previous year. It has all those features which FabFilter Pro Q3 has, but also it has analog emulations of SSL-E, SSL-G, NIF, Pultec, and everybody like, whoa, it's unbelievable. Like digital EQ and all those fancy analog emulations in one plugin. You think? Here's the principle of constant equalizers. Now you create this point, which is one bell filter, which means you're gonna have the iceberg floating under the water. If you take this iceberg and you put it just a bit above the water, you boost with this filter just a bit like this, you're gonna have pretty narrow filter. As you can see, the curve is pretty narrow. Filter will not boost a lot of frequencies around, it will be just pretty narrow filter, right? Let's say instead you decided to boost more. You boost like this, you're gonna boost more frequencies around. This filter already doesn't look as narrow. But steepness of the curves of this iceberg, kind of the same. That's why this type of equalizer is called constant EQ. In third case, you boost all the way. In this case, of course, you're gonna affect a lot of frequencies around, and mountain's base will be pretty wide. One of examples of this type of equalizers is SSL-E. Now let me show you what traditional equalizers do. Mountain base relatively fixed from here to here. So they already have pretty wide mountain base like this. If you boost just like by 3 dB, 5 dB, you're gonna have very wide filter. If you boost more, your mountain base will be relatively the same, but you're gonna have a bit steeper curve of your filter. It would be like this. You're gonna get more aggressive angle for this size of this filter, right? And if you boost all the way, filter feels like narrower because steepness of the curves much more aggressive. Mountain base remains relatively the same, like this. And this type of equalizer, vintage style equalizer, is, for example, SSL-G. Actually, this design was stolen by a SSL company, but it's the other story. There are many more things to say about this, but how SSL-E and SSL-G can be matched only in one way, if you boost all the way. If you boost all the way with E equalizer, you're gonna get this thing as well in the same way. So mountain base will be relatively equal between E and G, and you're gonna have curves matched. But anyway, our main conclusion is, if you boost just a bit, you're gonna have much wider curve with G, literally like this. And if you boost by E equalizer, you're gonna have filter like this. As you can see, mountain base of the E equalizer will be much narrower in comparison to G. So E is narrower with the same Q, and G is much wider with the same Q. I'm gonna prove my point. Let's measure a couple of emulations. I have SSL E and G equalizers of 9000 series actually on my table. This is BrainWorks SSL 4000 E equalizer. 2K, boosted by 5 dB, and Q is 1.5 at 12 o'clock. The same settings on G equalizer. As you can see, 2K plus 5 dB, Q 1.5. Here's the result of measuring. White is E, green is G. On both you have equal boost around 2K. Frequencies like 1K much more boosted by G equalizer green curve. Frequencies like even 600, even 500, even 460 actually boosted more by G equalizer than E. So this is how wide G equalizer, like crazy. It affects too many frequencies around. The same on the right side. You have like 3K boosted much more by green, which is G. You have 4K, 5K, 6K, 7K, even 8K actually boosted more by G equalizer, while E equalizer remains flat at those frequencies. Now what I did, I boost SSL-E and SSL-G relatively all the way, and this is how those curves, as you can see, pretty matched. Now on the screen you can see SSL from SSL. It's a 9000 actually equalizer, but it still has curves of E and G. So you engage E, and GRE is boosted much more around neighboring frequencies, even far away from 1K, for example, like 5K, even 10K, a bit more boosted than on white curve. White curve is E. And G equalizer, as you can see, also around 500 boosted much more, even 300 boosted much more. And again, I can match those curves if I boost all the way. I did the same measurings on all those plugins, including 9000 SSL Brainworks with E and G switcher over here. Then I did the same with Waves plugins by these two channel strips. It gives you exactly the same results. Now let's measure Kirchhoff equalizer, which claimed to be all full-fat plugin with all those nice digital features, which is actually great features, of course. But how about those emulations? It was the big hook by this plugin. People bought this plugin exactly because of this, because they believe it has all those authentically, properly emulated curves of classic equalizers, plus all these digital features. I create this point around 2K, right? I go to the library of different type of equalizers and I go to type E, which is SSL-E. High mid frequency. 2K SSL-E plus 5 dB EQ for some reason says 18.6. Whatever. I'm gonna measure this curve right now. Pretty narrow boost around 2K. Okay? Next thing, I switch to the G SSL equalizer. So I choose high mid frequency as well, which is a green band. It's also 2000 plus 5 dB, but you know, when I shift from SSL-E to SSL-G, I expect much wider curve. However, if I switch between these two curves, as you can see, it's pretty identical curve, absolutely. Again, if I match it absolutely 100% the same, I can put 18.6 to Q knob. And now if I switch between E and G, I switch. As you can see, filter actually looks exactly the same. With the same position on the Q, between E and G on this equalizer, there is absolutely no difference. But for now, let's measure it. Maybe it's about measuring, right? So now you can see the measuring between Kirchhoff SSL-E and Kirchhoff SSL-G, and there is absolutely no difference. If it was done on purpose, don't forget, SSL-E is constant EQ and SSL-G is a vintage EQ. So even if plugin manufacturer somehow matched curves between E and G, and I boost by 5 dB right now, right? If I continue boosting to those maximum gains where SSL equalizers usually go plus 15, plus 17, plus 20 dB, if I boost with E equalizer, it would remain the same steepness of the curve because it's a constant equalizer. So it would be one shape with plus 17 dB, let's say. And if I boost on a G equalizer plus 70 dB, it keeps its mounting base relatively, and it would boost its summit, and you're gonna increase steepness of the curve. So E and G will not be matched right now. If I try now plus 17 dB on both equalizers. By the way, if you for some reason watch this video and you rewind just to this point, watch somewhere closer to the beginning where I explained the difference between constant equalizer and vintage equalizer. But now, as I hope you saw those explanations, now you totally understand what I'm talking about, and now I'm gonna boost by 17 dB. So this is how the curve looks like on G, and this curve remains relatively the same. Crazy, right? So now I'm gonna measure Kirchhoff ESSL and Kirchhoff SSL-G equalizer. It's absolutely matched, as you can see. Let's have partial conclusion. So Kirchhoff E equalizer plus 5 dB and plus 5 dB on G equalizer with the same Q position. You have matched curve. With plus 17 on E and plus 17 on G, you're gonna get also pretty matched curve, plus minus, you know, like tiny little difference maybe. In Kirchhoff equalizer, it's not constant EQ and vintage EQ. It's exactly the same EQ, which gives you the same steepness of the curve with a little bit of boost and with a lot of boost. On real SSL EQ, and you boost by 17 dB and your curves are matched, then you change plus 17 just to plus 5, And actually plus 5 is the most important because you usually mix by 5 dB. You don't boost plus 17 dB on every instrument in the mix. You mostly boost by 1 dB, 2 dB, 5 dB sometimes, you know. So when you change the same Q, you don't change Q, you don't touch Q in all these situations. You keep the same Q factor, which is width of your filter. You change from 17 to plus 5, and you change 17 to plus 5 on G equalizer. G equalizer will be much wider than SSL-E, which means G is much bigger and E is just much smaller. Because E equalizer is a constant EQ and G equalizer it's a vintage style curve. On real SSL now, if I don't boost all the way, so I change this G to plus 5. On this E I also put exactly plus 5, as you can see, or the same Q, the same frequency. Now you can see measuring between proper plugin emulations. Look over here in this area where you have like 2K mark. White, green, white. So as you can see, it's basically the same levels over here. Look at this area around 500, 600, 800 where my mouse cursor is. I'm gonna activate green, which is G, and you have higher volume of green, as you can see, right? So green is much wider curve, and that's why it's much more boosted around 500, 800. The same thing you're gonna have with those frequencies like 3K, 4K, 5K. Look over here on the very right side where my mouse cursor is. Look how green would be now higher than white. See? Green is wider. Crazy. And actually it's exactly the same on all plugin emulations and on my analog SSL, but it's not on Kirchhoff equalizer. Kirchhoff equalizer doesn't have all this. If you say, oh, it doesn't matter, I would say, are you crazy? How it doesn't matter? This equalizer claimed to be like digital fancy features plus analog emulations of the most classic equalizers of all time. That's why people would choose this equalizer over other plugins, because it kind of provides both worlds in just one plugin. So SL-E is supposed to be constant EQ and SL-G is supposed to be vintage EQ curve. And as you can see, they behave completely different. By the way, check the first pinned comment, you can attend one free trial class of one of the most powerful audio production courses. Also, you can find 5 crazy useful YouTube videos which I made in the first pinned comment as well. The next mistake, 4000 E equalizer, there is low band and high band, and they have so-called bell mode. They can be just bell filters. Let's try to boost 100 Hz, something around 6 decibels. Now I'm gonna do the same thing, 100 Hz plus 6 dB in bell mode for those low bands on Kirchhoff EQ. We go to the library, we choose type E. I choose this E-style low band bell filter. I don't make any mistakes here, I've double checked it. So 100, I boost by 6 dB. Now, this is the results of measuring. Green curve, it's real SSL 4000E. As you can see, it's pretty narrow boost. While on Kirchhoff EQ, for some reason, it's super wide. Check it out. You boost like sub frequencies 45. You boost frequencies like 200, 300, 400, 500. Much more than real SSL. Kirchhoff equalizer offers you authentic classic equalizers. I don't see those SSL equalizers here, you know what I mean? On this one I may say potentially maybe Kirchhoff equalizers show some crazy rare SSL equalizer, not black knob, not brown knob. 1976 4KB, which was predecessor of a brown knob EQ. SSL recently released this plugin. It's supposed to be much wider on the bell filter on the low band. I put 100 over here, I choose bell mode over here, and I boost by 6 dB as I boosted over there. It's the widest bell filter on the low and high band I ever seen in SSL equalizers. It comes from the earliest SSL equalizer, which comes from very rare 4000B mixer. And it's orange color and white is Kirchhoff EQ. And it's still much narrower, as you can see. Kirchhoff EQ still boosts more like 40 Hz, more like 250 Hz, more like even 500. Who knows where the plugin manufacturer took these strange curves for SSL-E equalizer. This is 9000 E equalizer. You may say maybe it's the modern one, who knows, you boost by 6 dB over here, right? It boosts only 100 particularly, and all other frequencies nearby is much lower, so this orange color is much lower than white. White is Kirchhoff. Now check it out, this is the narrowest Q, right, on SSL E, and this is narrowest Q on SLG. SLG gives you even narrower curve, seems like, for some reason, than E. Actually, it should be opposite. SLE gives you at least some narrow curve in the narrowest position. G cannot give you narrow curve. On this plugin, it's opposite. On this plugin, G equalizer give you just a bit narrower curve than E. Are you crazy? I mean, what kind of E and G emulation it is, you know? With narrowest position, G equalizer still should be too wide, and SSL E supposed to be relatively narrow. Another crazy observation. The unique feature of G equalizer is to boost high frequencies with a resonance, which means if you imagine flat equalizer which is untouched, and then you boost, let's say, frequencies like X kilohertz, you're gonna have shelf on a SSL G equalizer, which looks like this. You have this like boost, and then you're gonna have even this resonance, like a cut in the mid-range over here, and only then filter will be flat. I use two plugins which emulate G equalizers. One is Brainworks. I boost highs over here on the purple band, right? This is 9000 G. I boost also like roughly by 6 dB. Green is Brainworks, orange is SSL from SSL Native 2 plugin. In these frequencies around like 500, 700, 1K, like a little hole in the mid-range. So this is Kirchhoff. Of course, I compensate a bit of tolerance of frequency choice over here. I boost roughly by 6 dB as well over here. And I almost match the curve. As you can see, I pretty match the curve over here. How much I boost, steepness of the curve remains the same, but suddenly, it doesn't have this resonance as much as on those G SSL emulations. Around like 500, 700, you don't have this like deep drop. So as you can see, green is one of those proper G emulations, and this white is much more exaggerated. This resonance is not deep enough on Kirchhoff EQ for some reason. So I kind of try to say maybe they just use very like unique module of SSL. Who knows? But considering how many mistakes were already found on this equalizer. Oh my god, another crazy thing which I noticed. If you cut with Kirchhoff equalizer on E equalizer within widest position, and if you cut on G equalizer with its widest position, it would be exactly the same curve as you can see, and if you measure it, it also gives you exactly the same curve. However, on real SSL E and SSL G, this is how my E was set up. So widest cube on the blue band, right? And minus 5 dB. The same over here. This is G equalizer, this is blue band. Minus 5 Q is the widest. G equalizer, which is green one, affects so many neighboring frequencies that it drops not only around 200 and 300, but even it drops green color. Look at green color. Around 700, around 1K, even around like 2K. The same over here, check it out. Even frequencies like 45 affected by this 300 cut on G equalizer, which means SSL E in its widest position still narrower than SSL G in its widest position. But on a Kirchhoff EQ, it's just random stuff, you know. It's basically the same curve on E and the same curve on G. Next thing I want to talk about, how about Q options on this SSL EQ? When you work with SSL G equalizer, all values will be crazy wide actually, even 3.0. Now let's check if Kirchhoff EQ really gives you this kind of workflow, right? So this is GEQ. Look what I chose over here, GLMF, which means it's a blue band on this G equalizer. So if I put it to the narrowest, 3.0, you would get crazy wide curve anyway around 300. Kirchhoff EQ, you can go as narrow as this. I understand your point. You can say, wait a second, but it's cool. It's like G equalizer with extended feature, right? Are you serious? You have plenty of equalizers to choose from. If you want narrow cuts, you can find equalizer which can go even narrower than this. What's the point to stick with SSL G to get narrow cuts? I hope you understand my straightforward logic. If I want narrow cuts, you can open Kirchhoff EQ, you don't go to any SSLs, you just go with traditional filter, and then you can choose whatever you want. You can go as narrow as this, as narrow as this, as narrow as this. As narrow as this if you're totally crazy, psycho. I'm not gonna go to SSL G to try to find narrow curves. I go to SSL EQ not for extra features, I go to SSL EQ for particular workflow. You know, I expect from G equalizer specific phase shift, I expect from G equalizer specific feel, you know, and when a mixer gets used to some tool over the years, you really want to be so familiar with this equalizer. Even if you stop using analog, you go to this plugin, for example, and you have similar workflow, you know what to expect from the narrowest side. It's about your workflow, it's about your habits, how you listen to Pultec, NIF, SLG, SLE, API, I would choose either this one or this one because I know what to expect from them. Instead, I open Kirchhoff EQ, tool which I know for whole my life, right, SSLG. First of all, I need to choose some filter, right? Don't forget about this. On real SSL, the cool thing is you get used to specific workflow. I'm gonna EQ pretty dark acoustic guitar with this G equalizer. How I would do it? Activated low cut, so I cut lows, I boost a bit of highs around 10k to open up the sound. Then I feel like the whole low mid is pretty muddy. I go to the narrowest Q over here, I put 300 or something, and then I cut just a bit, so I instantly know a bit more highs, I go purple. If I want a bit more muddiness control, I go blue. So it's so straightforward. On Kirchhoff equalizer, you're not gonna have this workflow. For you, it would be cut muddiness. Okay. Some point, go to the library, G, you go HP, LS, KGB, FBI, USA, NBA, you know what I mean? So it's so many abbreviations here. So this is low mid frequency. Now you're gonna drop this point. You can choose any frequency you want, basically, not necessarily slow mid, 0.025, and you're like, who knows what this curve is coming from, you know? And this is like very narrow curve, which is much narrower than SSLG equalizer can go, you know? And you like, who knows, you know what I mean? And then you need to put another filter, right? So you put a filter, then you go here, you go like G. On real mixer, it's like you just see those colors and you just like stretch your hand and like rotation, 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 and EQ is done, you know? Analog equalizers still make sense, even though they are pretty limited. They give you like very interesting and proper fast workflow. Don't forget, guys, I put only 10% of the power of my course to my videos. If you want to learn audio engineering in the best possible way, get a free trial class to check my course out, and then you can enroll to one of the most powerful audio production courses. Potentially, it would be your best investment. How to contact me to get a free trial class, the information is in the first pinned comment or in the description or on the screen.